Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the fourth and final day of the 2017 International Esports Federation 9th Esports World Championship. It's a lot to remember, but hopefully what you do remember are all of the great games that we've seen in each of our 4 days of competition, culminating for this ultimate day. And it's really going to be great. We've seen great matches from League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Global Offensive, and Tekken 7, which concluded yesterday. Today, we will conclude our League of Legends portion of this Esports World Championship with our 3rd and 4th place match, followed immediately by our grand finals. And how grand they should be. We have 4 teams that have advanced to these 4 final places, and after today's games, we'll find out exactly where they stand.
And just like them, we are curious to see who can potentially advance. I mean, the first one, of course, is going to be the 3rd place match between both Israel and China. Both of these 2 teams, they have made such an impressive run through. So in order to say that they've made it here, you've got to give them a lot of kudos because they beat a lot of tough competition.
And here's how they did make it here. A pretty strong performance from Israel after not showing up at the last Esports World Championship. They have really showed up as a nation here. They brought the 2nd or 3rd most players here to this event, and every single one of them have done very, very well, top 8 or above. And then here you can see that Israel did make it to the semifinals. Unfortunately, they did drop 0-2 to Serbia, who did advance to the grand finals. And on the other side, there was an epic matchup between China and Korea, with Korea taking a narrow 2-1 victory to advance on to the finals. And that's going to set us up for our 3rd place match, Israel versus China, to claim that 3rd place spot.
And you know, when we talk about these 2 teams, especially on the individual sides of the bracket, Israel and Serbia, they have this sort of love-hate relationship where when they come to these international tournaments, of course, they're going up against each other. They want to prove their mettle and they want to always get the one-up on each other. But outside of competition, they actually are very friendly. They talk to each other a lot and they actually have a lot of strategy. Let's see if they can adapt from their previous game going into China here.
And this is exactly how they've looked coming into the matchup versus China. Both first seeds in Group A and D, so very, very strong performances. Israel with a 3-0 and China with a 4-0. Of course, they had one extra team in their group, but still very, very strong performances, undefeated until their inevitable defeat. So they won until they lost.
I mean, I guess that's how it always goes, right? Unless
yes,
you win all the way through and you become one of the champions here. But nonetheless, it's a good run. And you got to say that it's a good run from both sides. Some people might look at this ladder and they might say, oh, Israel might have had an easy way in. Their group might have looked a bit easier compared to the other groups. But no, they made it very formidably. They made it all the way through. They 2-0'd the quarterfinals, and now they're finally here.
You are absolutely correct, Preacher. And now I believe we are setting up to start things off with our 3rd place match. It is a best of 3, so this is not going to last too long. Both of our teams have proven that they do have what it takes to win, but can they win against each other? Well, only one team will be able to. That is the nature of competition.
And when we're talking about this sort of competition, it's always very funny because they're placed on 2 different sides of the brackets, and it's actually quite different how both of these 2 sides of the brackets play. It's a lot like how these individual countries always play in their own meta, in their own style, whether they go aggressive early or scale late. And now they're finally trying to prove to themselves which side is actually the better one here.
Yeah, out of an incredible number of countries represented, many different play styles, many different servers that these teams play on, lots of different metas and all kinds of craziness, champion pools, strategies. We've seen it all really so far. And we've gotten a chance to see both of these 2 teams play before, with China having a dominating victory over the Philippines, the 2nd place team from last year, and with Serbia taking out Romania in maybe a little bit less dominant fashion, but still looked very, very solid at the end. So, you know, it looks pretty good, at least for this matchup coming in. I would say that maybe a slight advantage. You know, I'm going to give it to China, maybe just slightly, because China did have a very difficult road and was knocked out very narrowly by Korea, the longtime favorites of the League of Legends competition here at the IeSF World Esports Championship.
Yeah, I totally have to agree. I mean, the 2-1 means that it was very close. They managed to take a game off of Korea. And just looking at the way that they draft as well, I think they have a better grasp of the actual meta. But that's not to say that Israel is completely out. You know, you can't completely discount them. You got to take a look at them and say, well, they play comfort champions, and sometimes those are outside of the bounds of meta, and that could catch China completely off by surprise.
We have seen definitely some outside of the bounds of the meta champions here, and certainly outside of the bounds of the meta spectators. So a big thanks to everybody who's come out to watch live here in Busan at the International Passenger Terminal. Or if you're watching online from anywhere in the world, we certainly do want to welcome you to our final day of League of Legends competition. I know one of the coolest parts of this international facet of this World Championship, the world part, is that even though we have this one competition in one place, there are people watching from either home countries or wherever these players' families are. I know several players had their families come with them, or at least representatives there, and so it's just really cool to see kind of the multinational aspect of it, not just here in Busan, but around the world, people supporting and cheering on their home teams. Exactly.
They're all here to compete, but outside, they're all friendly. And I think that's the greatest part about it. You know, you make new friends, you make international friends you don't get to meet too often, and it's just a good experience all around. I mean, I get to meet you over here, and, you know, that's a very rare thing to do these days.
It appears as if we are still waiting on getting into, that was my way of saying thank you, by the way. We're still waiting on getting into our first game, but first we actually have to sort out some player equipment issues, and then once those are taken care of, we get everything done and sorted and ready to go for our first best of 3. What has been your favorite part of your time here in Busan? I understand that you did a little bit of sightseeing lately, Preacher.
Oh, of course, yesterday I went to Culture Village all the way up in the mountains. I had no idea that there was a bus available, so I actually trekked it the whole way. But, you know, it's good for the system. You know, I felt very good. I felt like I conquered the mountain afterwards, and it was just an amazing place to visit. I hopefully should be able to see some beaches after this event, but speaking of this event, you know, you can't discount this as one of the highlights of coming here as well.
Oh, absolutely. We get a chance to have a great venue here at a great port. You get a chance to see the most iconic bridge in Busan right outside the window. It's a great way to not only come and experience the culture of esports in Korea, but also the culture of this esports city of Busan. So it's been a great experience, I know, for me, and I'm glad that you've been enjoying yourself here. And hopefully for any of you watching here live in the venue in Busan, you've enjoyed yourself as well. If not, I have some tourism recommendations for you if you want to come see me afterwards. But that's going to, let's see, I think we are about ready. If not, then we'll keep talking. What has been your favorite League of Legends-based experience here, Preacher?
I mean, can you really go past a Tryndamere mid? I'm just going to ask that question and put it forward right now.
Right.
I think that that one was unique. I don't think that anybody past the teams. I don't even think that the teams before Pick and Ban even knew that they were going to play it themselves. But yeah, it really blew my socks off, and I now know how to countercast it in mid.
You heard it here first, guys. There's things like Zed or other traditional assassins. No, go with the Tryndamere. Yeah, it was that was a very interesting day. We've also seen some very aggressive Nidalee jungles, seen kind of the rise of Ornn top lane, finally getting a chance to see some of that come out. Hasn't really hit late game with that, so the item buys aren't really coming through, but we have plenty more games to see whether or not that will come out. We're talking to some of our teams on the bus coming over in a little bit in the previous days of competition here, specifically the Israeli team who kind of made a surprise run through the bracket. I didn't know exactly what to expect from them after not getting a chance to see them play last year, but they've looked super, super solid, and they've said that even though some of their members may be stronger than others, their team coordination has looked super great. And one of the concerns that they had is that when you look at the bracket, it may not necessarily look like their run through was as difficult as maybe, say, the other side with China having to face off against Korea. But keep in mind, this is the first time that we've really seen Israeli League of Legends represented here in the current modern meta, and to have it fare so well in an international competition that has such multiplicitous challenges, all kinds of things getting thrown your way. Really impressive to see them wind up here in the semifinals, and even though they didn't wind up winning their semifinal matchup, they still have a chance to make it here in the third place match.
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree. And it's one thing to simply say, how do these metas pitch against each other? How do these play styles pitch against each other? You know, you got the early aggressive Nidalees. You can even have the Ezreals that were banned away a whole lot on the very first day. My heart yet longs to see an Ezreal jungle on one of these maps. But, you know, just the fact that these players are playing on a stage, you know, this might be a first-time experience for a lot of them. The fact that they're playing in front of a live crowd, in front of a casted experience, you know, that must be weighing on them, weighing on their emotions. They must be thinking, you know, maybe I need to play to impress. Maybe I shouldn't go for that very aggressive level 2 gank that may or may not work in my favor.
Or maybe you should, and then you get all that star points. So I think we are about ready to go, so we should be moments away. If we are not, then you get to hear more of our dulcet tones, which hopefully you've been enjoying this entire time. You know, I got to say, on the other side, we talked a little bit about Israel. Let's talk a little bit about China coming into this. Last year, China came in as a very dominant powerhouse. We've seen Chinese teams represented by great esports organizations in China, things like Team World Elite, or WE, and then we've also had Vici Gaming, both of those like large organizations that have sponsored these China youth teams and really brought them up and let them train with them and kind of given them that leg up. Well, this year, the Chinese team is represented by Team EDG, or Edward Gaming, from China, one of, if not the strongest esports franchises in that country, incredibly powerful. And so they have sponsored this Chinese youth team that did win their national qualifier and allowed them to come in and train and really get that professional experience that they needed to. And after last year's Chinese team ran into a little bit of a roadblock against the Australian representatives and finished 5th through 8th, this year it's reassuring to see them finish a couple of notches higher.
And you can really see that come through with their playstyle. I mean, they're sponsored by EDG. You can see that they might have learned a thing or two from their sister team, the #1 seed from the LPL. I mean, these guys, they go aggressive and they don't stop going aggressive. They picked the Alistar support in the one game that we spectated, and that really blew my socks off. Not because there was an Alistar and it's the current meta, but because that Alistar was going in every single chance that he possibly had. I mean, you really can't expect anything else in this Chinese squad. It's just aggression over and over and over again.
Yeah, sometimes you just need a champion that helps you get those big plays made, and Alistar, of course, right on top of that. We've seen kind of the resurgence of a little bit of Leona to punish these weak Ardent Sensor Rush champions down there, and even though we're 3 patches after Worlds, there's still quite a bit of that previous meta still kind of lingering around.
Yeah, it's sort of strange to me to see that. I mean, Ardent Sensor isn't great as what it used to be. The early game got nerfed very heavily. I still think it's a good item. Just buy it maybe mid-game when the on-hit damage doesn't matter too much and you're looking more towards the attack speed. But no, a whole lot of these teams are actually prioritizing the Lulu very early on. Not a lot of teams are prioritizing the Janna. And yeah, I just want to see them maybe potentially branch out, because if they do stick to this, then it means that they're playing with what they knew before. And on this current patch, especially going to something like Chinese aggression or Korean diversity and learning techniques, it might not work so well.
Dedicated offense. I believe that's what we call it now. One of the two. We'll see if we have that come into play here. And really, this is just kind of our first opportunity. I got a chance to watch a little bit of the Israeli League of Legends competition yesterday as they were playing off against Korea in the semifinals. And so or Serbia, rather. It's the other side of the bracket. And, you know, there seemed to be some, you know, stylistic differences between both of them, but the real player that I really want to watch from Israel is going to be their jungler. It seems like, at least as far as their coordination goes, that is a strength that they had a couple of years ago when Israel played, but after taking a year off, their normal jungler was unfortunately unable to join them here on this trip, and so they have a little bit of an autofill going in there, and sometimes that can create some, you know, I don't know what you really want to call it, but difficulties that you wouldn't necessarily have. Like, you play with one player, you train with that player, and yeah, it can be a little bit challenging to keep that communication going when this is not the player that you've trained and practiced with your entire season.
Yeah, but having said that, looking over their first day, it actually looked pretty good. They looked very cohesive. It all looked like they were roughly on the same page. But yeah, speaking about the previous tournaments, it just didn't quite look like they were on the same page.
Well, now it's going to look like we are on the same page as our tournament, as our players have resolved all of their peripheral issues and have gone into Champion Select. We should be getting that up on your screen here momentarily. And I'm excited to get this third and fourth place match on the way, Preacher.
I mean, I just can't wait. I want to see if Israel maybe adapt a little bit towards their Chinese opponents over on the other side. They know that it's going to be something very aggressive in the support and maybe even in the jungle position, so counter that with your own aggression.
We've got some very aggressive fans out there getting the screams and cheers going already. I'm just going to appropriate those for the purpose of our tournament, regardless of what they're actually cheering for. I think we could all get a little bit happy and excited for these games coming up as soon as we enter Champion Select, which may be happening here momentarily. That's certainly my hope. It's always better to have League of Legends to talk about instead of talking about League of Legends that you have yet to have.
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult. I mean, some things are for certain, you know, most likely Kallista's going to be banned, most likely Jarvan's going to either be picked or banned, and same with Galio,
Okay.
but besides that, anything is on the table, and we can't really speculate about that.
More things change, the more they stay the same sometimes. So let's go ahead and take a look on stage. There you see on your screen our Israeli and Chinese representatives ahead of their third and fourth place penultimate series. It's going to be exciting to watch. We haven't seen these two players or these two teams face off against each other. They of course started in different groups to start things off. They were undefeated in their groups, just like the other two finalists were Serbia and Korea. So a bunch of undefeated teams making it all the way here to the finals with their handshakes out of the way, or at least in progress. They will line their ways up on stage. Of course, this is in front of the trophy that stands behind them. It will be awarded to the winning country at the conclusion of this Esports World Championship. There we go, the handshakes coming out as the players get ready to head into their booths, sit down in their chairs, and prepare for their third and fourth place match.
I mean, you always want to get the handshakes right, you know? It's a little bit of mind games as well. I mean, every little bit counts. If I shake your hand very firm, you're going to know that I came here to
You're
mean
a firm
business.
handshake kind of guy, Preacher.
Of course I
You know,
am.
we didn't shake hands before there.
There we go.
That's actually an overly firm handshake. I just gotta know I'm a little bit injured now, so be careful about that when you go to shake Preacher's hands. It's a traumatic experience.
I mean, I've always been known for that, but there are some people in my home country in Australia where they actually do the wet fish. You know, it's just
Okay.
No, it's not
But
not
you
a
gotta
very good
average it
experience.
out, right?
Yeah, of
okay.
course.
I don't know if that's going to work out too well. I'm more of a middle-of-the-road handshake kind of guy. There's not a lot of push and pull. It's just like, hey, there you go. And that's about all that we have to say about that. We've got to get into our champion select, and after our handshakes and our ceremonies are done, it's finally time to start some League of Legends. So we've fixed our peripherals, we've fixed our, I guess, sportsmanship on stage. We're checking things off the list, and down at the bottom, the elusive check mark for the empty box of playing League of Legends, one that hopefully we'll be filling right about now. We've decided to progress into champion picks and bans, communicating through interpretive dance. Unfortunately, because we're not on camera, you won't get to witness that, but what you will get a chance to see our picks and bans for game number 1 of our best of 3 for this third and fourth place match between Israel on the blue side facing off against China on the red.
And I'm already disappointed just a little bit from the very first bans that have already come out. I was talking to Cupcake a little bit ago, you know, the top laner for Team Israel, and he said, today, I just really feel like playing Jace.
He was hyping up the Jace, man. Unfortunately, I think China may have, been a little bit privy to those plans, and they will go ahead and start the ban process off there. And of course, no surprise ban on Jarvan the Fourth coming out of Israel as well.
Yeah, that's just going to be a very standard one. Jarvan, you can pretty much combo anybody with him, so that's not too much of a shocker, but I really did want to see that challenge in Jace. Nonetheless, though, Kalista, the formalities continue.
Going through the first phase of the ban stage, and it's nothing too surprising so far. This final ban might be a little bit targeted, and China will have the opportunity to ban the final champion before, but blue side on this patch before the preseason changes kicked in is just so strong. There's so many champions that you just kind of have to have. But of course, red side, if blue goes for maybe a little bit of a niche pick early on, then they could just grab 2 right in a row, and it's an Azir!
Wow, I would have never never imagine for Israel to come out of the gate swinging with an Azir. I mean, that just leaves open so many other picks. Sejuani is still up. Sejuani is a very strong jungler at the current moment. China already picked up Lulu, which is a very good support, although it does mean that they don't really have the playmaking like I was alluding to before this game started, so anything is up for grabs right now for them.
So Azir is very strong on this patch. He got buffed and buffed and buffed, and I think the last final one may have put him into that S-class of mid laners, which is a little bit strange because we didn't see any Azir play at Worlds, given that was 3 patches ago, and we probably won't see any Azir play on the preseason patches, just given the way that Runes Reforged have changed the way that his attack speed AP mechanic works. So this is really the sweet spot if you are an Azir main. Shout out to /r Azir mains. They're out there, and now they're in here in our game. Of course, on the other side, the Lulu, it's telegraphing an Ardent Sensor meta bottom lane for China, as well as a Sejuani locked in as well.
Yeah, so that Sejuani was something that I pretty much expected. It's to counteract the fact that you don't have an engaged support in the bottom lane. It just means that you have that early aggression. She was nerfed on this patch, which means that her late game got hit quite a bit, but in terms of her early game, she has much more of a playmaking sort of kit, playmaking sort of potential, because her cooldowns, especially for a passive, are much lower. Going over back to Israel's composition though, if that Karma goes support, and if she also goes Ardent Sensor, she's not just buffing the Caitlyn, but Azir also gets those attack speed buffs, which makes him even stronger than you previously thought.
I was going to say, you're building Ardent Sensor, you have a champion that can apply it to everybody. Why not just get a lot of attack speed champions? And we have yet to see the jungler here for Israel, and that might really help us out for the attack speed. You'll notice the Ezreal banned from China, an attack speed-based jungler that would also benefit from that Ardent Sensor. You're not going to see that this game as well.
Yeah, no, that's very unfortunate. Obviously, both of these 2 junglers are banned off because there was none picked for Israel, but the option for a Nidalee is still available. We saw some very aggressive early Nidalees coming out from Israel, so if they manage to pick it up this game, while they would be lacking a tank, which they desperately need in the top lane, they could have a very solid jungler.
See what champions get. That's a Katarina.
Wow.
Preacher.
Alrighty then. Who needs to outplay the soldiers when you can just jump straight over them and hit Azir in the face?
I mean, yeah, you either get pushed out of it if you start first, but if those shifting sands come out and you are able to just shunpo your way right into Azir, I mean, that's one way to do it. Now, on the other side, you'll see an immediate reaction to that Katarina saying, what if you just never killed anyone? So picking a Katarina into this double shield composition, that is a tall order. I mean, I guess you could maybe count Azir's there as well, but there's just a whole lot of not dying stuff. So Katarina's going to have her sights set on, not Extra Angel, he's not playing the Caitlyn in the jungle. That would be Goshu Jin, who it's going to have a lot of protection, and does.
Yeah, however, the entire team composition is rounded out by Kled. Now, if any single country had to be defined by any single champion, it has to be China and Kled. The LPL was the very first region to ever bring out Kled, and they just love this champion. He bullies out the top lane. The fact that he's going against the Shen is going to be a very rough time for the Shen, and also the fact that his charge can always engage a fight. I mean, you can never discount the fact that this guy is just going to be bumping straight into your team. That is something that is very typical of China and plays very well into their playstyle, given the fact that they don't have a playmaking support.
What you talking about? Playmaking supports. Man, let me tell you about my Lulu and Karma. We'll be making some plays.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll be seeing plenty of those here on our screens. You know, it's interesting to see just kind of the different reactions here. Israel, with a primarily very defensive composition, picking up those 2 super tanks at the end, and then just non-stop, all-in, go-for-it aggression from China. That's kind of what we expect. That's what you were talking about earlier, Preacher.
And there is just one little downside that I will have to critique Israel for. Now, maybe it will get amended in game. We're not too certain. It was down to the very last few seconds of champion pick and ban. But if it was a heal Caitlyn and an ignite Karma, then I'm fearing a little bit for this composition. Because like you mentioned, the Katarina, she only has one path, and it's straight to the ADC.
Get a chance to see which summoner spells were chosen once we finally get into the game. Here you can see the champions, the players, the skins, and everything as we set up for our first game of this 3rd and 4th place match. Game number 1 starts right now. And we're off into game number 1. This is the the start of the third and fourth place match. Can't decide third and first at the same time. In the blue, it's Israel, and also in their home colors, it's China in the red.
I mean, it's very fitting. It means that we don't really have to worry when we take a look at the colors, but I am very glad that...
Just wait until they swap sides, Preacher. That's really going to do it.
Yeah, that's going to be the nightmare and a half. But the one good thing about this is the fact that there is finally an exhaust on the support Karma as opposed to Ignite.
Right, makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, you usually take the Ignite if you're looking for a kill lane, but going into a Lulu, that's very difficult for both of those champions to potentially fall down in a 2v2. So the fact that there's an exhaust, the fact that they can hard counter the Katarina coming in to get her initial reset onto somebody is a very good sign for the side of Israel.
It just feels like Israel has drafted a team that does very well with the aggressive nature of things like Kled, things like Katarina. And so whenever you pick champions that kind of telegraph that aggressive stance, there's no real way to play those guys defensively. You're going to go tank Kled. No, not really. I mean, tank Katarina, to be fair, has been a thing at many stages of the meta. Going to give some shout-outs to Voyboy for that old school, what was it, Warmog, Sunfire Cave.
And also the Leviathan back in those days.
That's very true.
Oh, man. Rest in peace, Leviathan, by the way.
Man, I tell you, when you put stacking on a defensive item, that's just kind of a match made in heaven, or otherwise, depending on which side of that item you're on. Unfortunately, we don't have that anymore. I was always just a triple stacking item kind of guy. You just rush all three, and then hopefully your team's kind of picking up the slack, and then you win anyway. But, looks like we have a few technical difficulties in the meantime. The Chinese team has requested a little bit of time to get their audio issues taken care of. In the meantime, thankfully, we have no audio issues, so we can go ahead and fill the time.
We can also talk about these compositions. I mean, the one thing that really changed about the Azir that I'm a huge fan of on this patch is the fact that going into a Sejuani can actually abuse the ultimate. The ultimate doesn't just do the bouncing castle anymore. Once it's out there, you can actually hop right over it and get onto Azir's face as we get back into game.
Yeah, a little bit. I guess I would call that a nerf. I remember back in the day, you used to have things like Rengar who would try to jump, and it would just keep bouncing.
Yeah.
Gone but not forgotten.
That was annoying. I think that pinning somebody against the wall, that is one of the worst moves that you could possibly do. Because
Absolutely.
It's pretty much a Morgana binding. You can't do anything. You're
just stuck.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now we are successfully stuck into game number 1. All issues have been resolved. We're starting things out in the jungle. Strangel's just going to go ahead and start things off there. No real surprise. Maokai Sapling is pretty good at clearing out those early... what do you want to call them? Raptors?
Early Raptors. Back
chicken nuggets?
Yeah, back in Australia, we call them popcorn chickens, the small ones.
There you go.
Yeah, no, they go very well. The one downside of starting on the Raptors is the fact that you can't get a leash from Azir because he has to put one of the soldiers over, and if he does so, not only can you obviously tell because he has some mana wasted, but he also loses a soldier for the actual lane. So you got to go off the get-go. It's going to be a very slow jungle for the Maokai, but it's going to be a very secure one. We expect to see him reach level 3, level 4, much slower than the Sejuani, so maybe that gives Brave a whole lot of time to get onto the map and make some plays.
Now, into Shen, sometimes we see picks like, I guess, Nasus is certainly one of those, but for here with the Kled, that's just going to be a pretty decent lane. Bottom lane, we've already got some very aggressive trades. Level 2 versus level 1, Summoner Heal comes out. Goshujin actually has to flash away the shield from that level 2, and the turnaround now imminent. Goshujin's still very, very low. Hope as well. Coming around the corner as he comes. Brave. Is Israel going to overextend here? There we go. Are we going to have the stun to land? A couple more auto attacks. The stun, and that's going to do it. First blood.
Excellently communicated from the Chinese squad. They knew for absolute certain that there were no summons available on the ADC. They go straight for bot lane. Sejuani can't miss if they can't dodge, and then they just get the kill.
Dash back to the turret there. Kang will stay safe in the top lane at very low health, but okay, whoa, that's a very aggressive Shunpo in Mole, but does recognize that there's not quite the ability to reposition those soldiers so aggressively. But man, X-Rangel has been getting into great positions and now looking coming in the mid lane.
Yeah, it's going to be a 1v1. There is also Maokai.
The flash and the Shunpo. Mole putting some real distance between himself. And keep in mind, this is the guy that we really saw kind of carve out a position for himself in the mid lane game against the Philippines in the group stages and really hold his own while their jungler Brave was getting work done across the map. Mole was just very self-sufficient, very able to dominate his own lane. Now, not quite so much. A lot more pressure being devoted by Israel.
Yeah, he's certainly showing that he can go both aggressive as well as defensive. I don't think that going that aggressive very early on was necessarily a bad move, but in the top lane, Kang, he is up ahead, but he does have a flash. Can he outplay this entire situation?
We'll see. He's going to lose his trusty steed and lose his life as well.
That was a very quick gank coming out into the top side. Kang burned his flash, but he still got off a skull. Didn't even get off a single auto attack to build any sort of re-skull back. And
no, man, Skarl got out of there. He saw what was coming. He pieced the scene.
Sorry, dude. I'm not in for this ride.
He'll be back eventually. We'll have to put some spurs and blinders on him next time, so he's not quite so squeamish. Back in the bottom lane, trades for days, and did they see Extra Angel there?
I don't believe so. This is one of the blind spots that he can stand in. Above that, he still knows that Caitlyn has no summoners at all. As soon as she burns net, that is a perfect time for him to come in, or he could do so right now.
Now, where's the polymorph? The flash polymorph does go down onto Caitlyn. Stun against the wall there. Shogo, down he goes. And XYY claiming his second bloodthirsty support kill.
They truly are making the most of their situation. They know for certain exactly when these summoners are coming back up. The next one available in bot lane is going to be the exhaust, and that's not going to be the be-all end-all. So maybe expect even a third gank coming out in the bottom lane. This is very dangerous coming out for the Israeli squad, especially around the bottom side of the map.
I believe the adage is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it keeps working, keep doing it. And it is continuing to pay off for the Chinese lineup in the bottom side of the map. Now heading back up towards the top or back down to the bottom. Our observers are kind of making me work here, but the best part about this bottom lane is that it hasn't just been a farm fest. We've seen non-stop action, trades for days, and it has been working out really for China, but not just in the 2v2. It's been primarily the jungle pressure that's really turned that lane around.
Of course, as soon as they know they can go for a play, they call Brave. But speaking of calling for Brave, he's coming up into the top side and he does have stun.
There it is. The stun does land. Cupcake, very, very narrow. A little bit of a miss there on the charge in slivers of HP, but it's going to be... Oh, no! Kang was tanking!
No.
I thought for sure Brave was going to draw turret aggro first and allow them to follow up for the kill, but no.
Yeah, he didn't even get back on Skull. Usually what happens is you tank with Skull, and then once you jump off of Skull, the turret retargets onto Brave, but that situation didn't happen, and Kang just went straight onto that turret and lost out a little bit too much in that trade. Going back down into the bottom lane, though, one of the huge things that I am a fan of is the fact that Hope, he knows his position in this lane. He knows his dominance early in relation to everybody else. And what he's doing is, at the very least, it looks like he's going for the early lethality build. I love this build going into this bottom lane because you know both of them are squishy. You know that Maokai's rarely going to be in this situation. Your job in the mid game is just to poke out the Caitlyn and also the Azir with your two casting abilities.
Poke damage has been good. The ganks have been better. So I really hope we get a chance to just watch a 2v2 to finally see really which of these duo lanes has the advantage without having that pesky interference from Brave being down there so much. Top lane, it was a nice trade kill, but I think actually Cupcake kind of got the advantage there because the wave actually pushed all the way back into Kang's turret, and he lost a whole wave of CS. So you can see the big CS discrepancy there with Cupcake having a great game for last hitting and a little bit of help there from the enemy jungler as well.
Yeah, it's always that great situation in which it bounces to you and you just say, well, you know, Kled, you are a melee champion, so a whole lot of these melee creeps are actually going to be in the dead zone for you. You can't actually hit it without either the turret or me hitting you, and you just deny away so much. But even bigger than that, it's the fact that Cupcake got to level 6. He's already level 7. He's got to stand united if the Maokai decides to make...
How does that ward not reach there? Extra Angel, the skinniest Maokai we have ever seen, just sneaking along the wall. He's got, I don't know, some extra strats.
He was hugging the wall. He was doing the old Spider-Man pose, you know? He was trying to get all the way across it, and he just managed to sneak his way across. So, unfortunately, he gets spotted out by the other one in the jungle, and he can't actually make too much of a play in either mid or bot. Now, that's going to be a huge punishing factor, because that's why you pick Shen, essentially, so that you can multi-man a situation, but you can't do so if everybody backs off.
Yeah, we haven't seen the multi-man just yet. Shen still having yet to ult. make his way elsewhere across the map. It's just been a pretty standard lane phase, disrupted a little bit by junglers here and there, but for the most part, you just look at the way the CS is working out. Aside from that duo lane, Israel's having a good time.
Well, they're having a good time until right now.
All right, well, yeah, that's a bad time. This is the unhelpful part of the players. Sometimes when I talk about something, they'll just illustrate it perfectly for me on screen, and I look super smart. And then the other time, I'm talking about how things are calm and nothing's happening, and then they get a kill on the top lane. So.
Yeah, it's just a classic cast occurs. You know, you're just like, oh, they're going to go amazingly, and then all of a sudden they get dove on. I mean, that was a very smart play from China. They put down a control ward in the exact same brush, and it was cleared out by Cupcake. So they put another one down. Obviously, they knew that Cupcake was going to get baited into it. Speaking of getting baited into.
Wow, yeah, that Katarina going a little bit big and bold. The bold and the beautiful there, not working out for China. Mole was maybe expecting a little bit more follow-through from the rest, but beautiful reaction. That is finally the Shen really coming in clutch. Great drafting here from Israel. Really keep that Chinese mid lane Katarina picked down.
Yeah, this is a ridiculously aggressive Katarina. I mean, she is trying to make plays effectively solo. She's going into the enemy jungle in order to get some wards. Kudos to you for doing so, because it is one of the things that your team needs. But also respect the fact that you're a Katarina, and if you get caught out by two people, yeah, sure, you can always have the resets in mind, but if you can't get the first kill, it's not going to be a great time for you. So this Katarina not really hitting the mark that we expected before.
Yeah, down 30 CS in lane. You kind of expect a Katarina, especially in a melee versus ranged matchup, to kind of struggle a little bit early. But, I mean, this is a big advantage for change name there for Israel. So we haven't seen the real 5v5s come out just yet. So it'll be cool to see whereas Israel have a little bit of a weaker duo lane in the bottom from all those ganks. Mid lane is looking really good, and Cupcake as well has been already able to impact the map.
Oh yeah, of course. And if Change Name can join any of these multi-man fights, use his ultimate, his Emperor's Divide, to really stop any situation that he can find possible, then it's a very easy situation for them to capitalize off of, because the one downside to Azir in the middle of team fights is his setting up process. But once he does set up, once he gets his 3 soldiers out there and hitting, and also shish kebabbing with his Q, then he's doing so much damage because of his buffs.
I just picked up my drink and started talking into it like a microphone. That's the level we're at right now. It's the first game of the day, guys. But now Change Name in a little bit of trouble. Going to go ahead and slide his way out of that situation. Gochujin able to net his way back to the turret. But now Shogo still in a little bit of a rough spot. This 2v2. Pretty dominated by China at this point. Now they're even looking to go deeper. It's a 4v2 situation. Very low health members. Where's that Stand United? It's going to have to come in momentarily. It's not up, so it can't come down to the bottom lane, but can Azir try to turn things around. The turret tanked up by Mole. He just barely is able to escape. XYY with a jump away there. Flash used to save his life, and everyone stays alive for China. Israel, not quite so lucky.
And I just want to point out the fact that while China collapsed and they got the best out of this situation, that is killing both members of this bot lane, there was a bit of a fumble in which they used the blast code and Mole was actually pushed to the side, not over the wall. If Mole went over the wall, that would have been even more devastating. But Israel, they were just a little bit too slow on the collapse. You could see that they could read it. You could see that Change Name was coming down, but he had to take a safe path because of the duo of China, and there was no real way that he could get into the situation until it was all done and dusted.
China just continues to have the playmaking edge, but when you look at just the overall lane phase mechanics, I mean, Israel is just doing great. Their Azir is farming like a boss in the mid lane. Top lane is going super, super well for Israel, but man, I really underestimated just how long the cooldown is on Stand United at level 1. Cupcake still didn't have it up to join that bottom lane fight. And now, top lane, he's got somebody coming at him. A beautiful dismounted dodge, the twisted advance. I have not seen that in a while. He's looking like Zaya up there, able to just go untargetable right at the right second and avoid that gank coming in. Yeah, gank number 2, second time, maybe the charm.
Oh, no.
He gets the remount, and now Angel is in a lot of trouble. Such a huge turnaround. Cupcake, 100% dodge for a second, but he will not be able to survive there. What an incredible play. And now in the mid lane, we're looking for outplays. Dump it back and change to him. Barely drops down. An incredible clutch out by Mole.
And you gotta say, if Change Name had a different summoner, if he had a barrier or even a heal, then that would have gone differently. But he took the cleanse because he respected the Sejuani. He also respected the Chains of Corruption coming out from the Varus. And in a 1v1, it doesn't help you too much because Cat doesn't CC you.
Well, I guess Death is the best CC Preacher. Oh, wow, the flash out at the same time as the Shen ult comes in. That's a little bit surprising, but it still might have an opportunity if he gets a double taunt here. That could be crazy. We'll lock down at least the AD carry. Will they dive for more? Yes, it will be. Built over Pacemaker stopping his heart.
And you just got to say that that was an excellent use of the Shen ultimate. You commented on it before. You didn't realize just how long the cooldown was. It got nerfed a few patches ago, just a few patches before World, to the point where it's 210 seconds instead of 180 seconds. I mean, that is a massive amount of time. You're thinking between 3 to 4 minutes worth of cooldown just for a high impact ultimate. And it really did punish them before, but they managed to capitalize on it now.
And even top lane, a beautiful roam to the top. We're not going to get a chance to see the culmination of that kill, but it is pretty much done at that point anyway. Kang gets taken out, now the action returns down to the bottom lane. Looks like Cupcake might have overextended just a little bit. Cupcake stays alive and escapes, and it's Israel cashing in for more kills.
And you know that when you're talking about a Cat, it is always down to the micro numbers. One kill means so much more damage on everyone else, but because Cupcake lives with such low HP, they manage to get out. And this is also a great push for Azir. You know that when you leave a turret with Azir, he is just going to take it down. There's no question about it. You should never do that. And he takes down the second turret for Israel.
Yeah, they did get first brick, and now they're going to get second solo gold there for Azir in the top lane. And that's not even the only goal. He killed Kang earlier. He's just way on top of the numbers. You know, a lot of times you can say, you know, kill is worth so many CS, a turret's worth so many CS, but not only does he have the CS lead, he's also got that kill and the solo turret gold. Now he's going to be moving faster out of combat, or no, that's China taking it. Sorry, I was thinking that we were talking about Kang at the same time, but no, Azir's looking great for Israel. Israel is looking great now that they have kind of started to exit the lane phase, and now that we're here in this mid lane, or mid-game Preacher, well, we're also in the mid lane too, but what is really the plan for China?
Well, China have to use the Rift Herald that they secured earlier, because at the current moment, they're actually down on gold towards Israel, and that was because of the turrets. Now that they've evened it up, it has swung towards the Chinese team's favor. They are yet to use that Herald. That Herald is their saving grace. If they can use it and bust down the mid lane, they would have broken down all 3 outer turrets. And having done so, it gives you so much control over everything in the river. It also gives you partial control of the entire jungle for Israel. So China's biggest hope at the current moment is simply to 5-man mid and to get that one down.
Herald's going to help them out with it when they get there, but in the meantime, I want to say Israel's defensive pressure is going to be a little greater. They do have the global ability of Shen, who now does have that global ultimate available as level 11.
And rank 2 as well?
Yeah, exactly. So it's not even going to be as long a cooldown. It's going to be more potent when he does come into this fight. And teleport isn't up for Kang, so he won't be able to follow.
Yeah, but the one upside of Kled is always canceling Shen's ultimate. You could do it with trap on a bear rope, or a bear trap on a rope, or you can even do it with your ultimate if absolutely need be. So, you know, he's always got those opportunities to do so, but at the current moment, it doesn't look like they want to, and Israel's actually forcing the issue.
You know, we were talking to Xrangel in the bus coming over here, and he was kind of lamenting having to play tank top laners all the time, but I mean, just look at how effective that is. Completely zoning the Chinese team off of the turret, following up for the kill. Nothing that they can do. We're talking about China needing to use that Herald to come through with a mid lane turret kill. No, now not only have they lost their mid lane turret, but with that Azir passive, Israel has gained another one.
Yeah, and the Azir passive means that you can't use the Herald for another whole minute until you wait for it to fall down naturally. That is such a huge punisher because you only have the Rift Herald buff for 4 minutes, and they've already held on to it for so long. Now they are forced to either use it to bust down an Azir turret, which is certainly not worth of a Rift Herald, or you just have to use it and hopefully try and get these new objectives like they're doing.
All right, right as that turret does fall, they will use the Rift Herald in the middle of the lane. Oh my god, great Sejuani ult. The double stun there with the Chains of Corruption coming through, but as much CC as went out, as much was given right back. Now a Herald, oh man, the last swing does take down that middle lane turret, but Israel is looking for more.
You just got to pay attention to the situation. The teleports are coming in.
Indeed they are. Change Name actually getting a lot of damage there from his soldiers out in the middle of the fight, but the turnaround there is Hope is able to get the damage done to take out Goes to Jin. Cupcake also dead at the same time. The double kill coming in for Katarina. Mo finally getting that Katarina to work. Kang with the teleport coming in from a nice little flank, but doesn't want to fight the 2v1. Is going to dash back out. He's going to rejoin the rest of his team. And China with a 3-for-0 exchange, taking now 1 turret, maybe 2.
And you got to give amazing props to Brave in that entire fight. He was zoning off X-Rangel and also changed name 2v1 while everybody else is doing work.
Lots of soldiers in here, but Mole does too much damage. Wow, what a turret kill and a champion kill at the same time. China really kicking in the clutch, but now a teleport being channeled. See if Cupcake can turn this around. He has Change Name waiting right off to the side. Kang taking a lot of damage from those soldiers. Gets taken out immediately, and that's not even off the teleport. Change Name just went in and bopped him, and now maybe Brave not able to recall. Oh my goodness, the clutchiest of clutches. The recall just barely in time. Brave makes it home alive.
No sweat on his forehead. He was just saying, you know what?
Easy.
This Shen, he can't dash over. I know the exact timings on it. I'm going to go back with just 0.1 of a second to spare. He gets back with his life, and the only consolation kill that goes over to Israel was onto Kang. So while they do manage to pick up that kill, and it also does go onto Change Name, which is one of the carries now. If you ever needed to devote the resource to one member, it has to be him. It does still look like a very punishing situation for Israel. You have to take a look at their gold. They're a couple of K behind. That is going to be punishing on them. And also the fact that Baron has spawned while the Mountain Drake is coming up in 1.5 minutes, that is also something that definitely they need to keep an eye on, because they've lost all of these turrets, they've lost all control over their jungle, and now they need to fight an uphill battle just to get to the Baron and the Dragon.
You know, Preacher, I keep looking at the way that this game is going, and it's a little bit ambiguous to say, okay, well, here's the gold lead, because you have to look at where it is. That's a 5-0-5 Sejuani. I mean, Brave is great and everything, but the utility of Sejuani is such that you don't really need items to make that happen. I mean, the tankiness is important, right? But if you look towards the other side for Israel, they've got a lot of really key picks. The Locket of the Iron Solari, almost the most important one, because it really helps neutralize that Katarina resets if it does come to the 5v5 fights. And more importantly, the Azir is sitting with 200 CS, 2 kills, and really farming super well. So the damage, the persistent damage is going to be there for Israel. Their tank line is farmed incredibly well as well. The top lane Shen just rolling in gold at this point. So I want to see kind of how these teams come together, because we haven't really gotten a chance to see the full-on 5v5.
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree with you. But looking over at the last major 5v5 team fight, you got to say that having some kills on Brave is not a terrible situation. One of his jobs is to zone out as many of the members as he possibly can. Now, if you take a look at his build, there is no way that he is zoning out this Caitlyn. This Caitlyn is going to be doing so much physical damage as that Glacial Prison misses, but the most important thing is the fact that he's got an adaptive helm, which obviously blocks a whole lot of the reoccurring damage coming out from Azir's soldiers. And also, he's got the Kindle gem. So the most important stat when we're talking about Sejuani is always cooldown reduction.
Absolutely.
So you get your ultimate, so you get your permafrost off faster. She's sitting on 20% right now. Could be a little bit higher, but she needs to mitigate the damage, because her job in 5v5s is to zone off as many people as she can.
Absolutely, and Brave has been doing such a fantastic job at doing that. His zone is just gigantic. Now, it didn't look gigantic there in the mid lane when he missed his ult, but the previous fight really did sort of set the stage for that. So, you know, we've seen attempts now here in the mid game, but both teams are really playing this kind of remarkably passively. Even in the bottom lane, as Kang has been over pushing a little bit, he knows that he's pretty safe, and if the team commits too much to trying to gank him or take him out down bottom, the rest of the Chinese roster will be able to make an advantage happen elsewhere.
Exactly. The rest of the Chinese roster is posted around mid, which is an extremely short walk away from the Baron. If they do need to make it there, there is always the charge available for Kang if he needs to get out of a sticky situation by himself, and he's also got the teleport virtually up for himself. So all of these things do go in the favor of China. And if we're going to talk about the split push potential, yeah, it's a very scary situation for Israel. I mean, they need to start dominating the map at the current moment. They need to start grouping up mid. They need to use the power of the Azir, because Azir in a split push, while it can be very strong, this build does not facilitate it. The build that does is usually a Nash's Tooth, but the Morellos gives you a team fight.
That is very true. The cooldown reduction, super important in that regard. Now, we are coming into a Mountain Drake here for the Chinese team. They've been really on top of these dragon spawns. Their objective control has been on point. They will take down yet another one. So you can't really let those things keep stacking up. Eventually we get down to Elder Dragon territory, and it's just going to be incredibly potent if you are the team that has been focusing on that objective all game long.
Yeah, I mean, Elder Drake is nothing to scoff at. Usually a whole lot of teams that ignore it in favor of the Baron. All of a sudden it's traded, they take a fight, and they wonder, hang on, how do we actually lose that fight? But here's the Chains of Corruption.
Yeah, it's going to go ahead and land, and stunned is right. Goshujin just destroyed before he could even react. I mean, you'll want to kind of drag that Cleanse Summoner spell down to the Caitlyn a little bit. I remember back in my day when AD carries took Cleanse, but this is definitely not that, although Goshujin probably wishes it were.
Yeah, it's just such a tricky situation where you want to assert your pressure. Because you're a Caitlyn, you always have the range advantage over Varus. 50 extra range. You want to be pushing it to their turret. The whole strength of Caitlyn in general is sieging, is putting down your traps, is really pressing the issue when it comes to sieging these turrets. But this Caitlyn is just not doing so. She's always forced back. She's always relegated to wave clear duty. And when she walks a little bit too far forward, like we just saw, Chains of Corruption, straight into a combo, there is no way to really counter that.
Now, you know, we're 25 minutes into this game, Preacher, and even though the the random picks have happened, Goshujin getting taken out a couple of times, and well, 5 times, that's a little bit more than a couple, but most of those happened in the early lane phase. This game could actually go the distance. There's only like a 3,000 or 4,000 gold deficit there for Israel. They're farming really well. They've stabilized their lanes. They haven't lost too many turrets. So what happens when this game goes super late, if that is the direction it goes? Which team has the real advantage here?
Well, you got to say in terms of raw damage output, in terms of potential strategy, you got to give it over to Israel's team. You've got the split push in the Shen. You've got the cohesive 4-man unit in the Azir who can clear waves, and also Caitlyn who can potentially zone out and pressure these turrets. But we're talking about ultra late game. And if we're going to be talking about the late game in the context of the situation right now, if China don't give up the pressure they have, fighting around these dragons, fighting around these barons is going to be an absolute nightmare when you compare the Venn diagrams of both the Chains of Corruption and also the Glacial Prison. There is no real way that Israel can get a good foothold onto getting any sort of good positioning to fight these objectives.
Absolutely. The spatial control from China is just so huge, so definitely something to respect. We're not quite there just yet. We still do have to respect things like the global pressure from Shen to join the fight, but it feels like finally Kang has taken the upper hand in that matchup when you have to build so much magic resistance early on Shen. It means that your versus AD is a little bit rough there to defend. And now China trying to force the first fight, the first 5v5 here in the mid game. I mean, Maokai trying to start that off, but actually he's the recipient of this Shen ult. It's not able to complete, so neither top laner able to join the fight. But look at so much damage coming through. China's health bars dropping. The flash through, but Change Name stays alive. Mole unable to get any resets, and it's a crushing defeat for China.
And Israel know exactly who the MVP is. They needed to use everything in order to keep Change Name alive. Ultimate had to come out early in order to defend the Maokai. I'm not too certain that they should be doing the Baron right now because they do not have a jungler. And while China is bleeding, they still do have that smite. Fortunate for them, they pull out of the situation, but still, it was very good communication and very good execution on Israel's side to actually keep their Azir alive.
Absolutely. For Israel, a good realization too not to do the Baron. Goshujin would have been their primary source of DPS, with Change Name being so low health that he had to recall, and he is really far behind at this point. He's down 50 CS, he's down like 2 items, and wouldn't have had the damage to deal that or to deal with that Baron effectively. So now we're going to reset around the Baron pit once again.
Yeah, and you could see exactly what China wanted to get with that. They didn't necessarily want to do Baron for the sake of getting Baron.
Right.
They wanted to do Baron in order to bait the Israeli squad into fighting them, into coming in their territory. Because we already said the Venn diagrams of Doom coming in between both of these hard CCs available for China would be more than enough to kill somebody, and kill somebody they did. They took down Maokai. They just didn't expect the rest of Israel to collapse on top of them. Now, they might be thinking twice before making that maneuver again. This Baron to China was more valuable alive than dead, but now Israel is going for it.
And look at the DPS here. Baron down to half HP in seconds. Now it might be a 50-50 if Brave decides to go over the wall. No, it's actually Hope that steals the Baron away for China.
Are you kidding me? Just a Ginzu's Rage Blade and also a Blade of the Ruined King as Change Name gets a solo kill? I cannot believe that.
I don't know. I mean, you expect the Smite to be what steals it, right? Look at what Summoner Spell is unused for both junglers. Neither one of them were able to press that Summoner. I don't know, man.
It just absolutely blows my mind. Neither Ginzu's nor Blade are the biggest AD items in the entire game. So this has just changed the whole game. It has turned everything on its head as China is now just getting objectives.
We gotta kind of reevaluate things at this point, Creature. You know, we've seen quite a bit of focus around that Baron. First time neither team was really trying to take it. The second time it was Israel focusing on it, but their focus just so disrupted they were unable to get the smite down that they needed. And now Baron buff given over to China at maybe the worst time. They are dropping turrets like flies, and China just more than willing to take that advantage and press it home.
Yeah, and when we're talking about the communication of these teams, because that's really what it comes down to when it comes to securing objectives like Israel is securing this break right now. We really do need to talk about exactly what sort of calls are made on all of these sides. I've had the privilege of sitting into some of the scrims of some of the local teams back in my home country, and what they do is whenever somebody tries to contest or steal a Baron, they just say, stop the Baron, kill that person, and then go back onto the Baron. Maybe that's what Israel was doing. They completely took their eyes off of the Baron, and it was stolen by a piercing arrow.
What a thing to steal. Now Israel is back on the aggressive, and this is something that you wouldn't necessarily expect to see into a Baron team, but when you're strong enough to think that it's a good idea to start the Baron, even if the enemy team does steal it, you're probably still in a good position to do that. Your Azir turret's kind of backing you up in that situation, so kind of uncharacteristically you see a team that lost Baron push out for a turret.
Yeah, however, it's all very little. When we're talking about them pushing out, it's always because China needs it back.
Right.
China needs to spend all of the gold that they've accrued for themselves. And as soon as the Chinese team get back onto the map, you can already see where the pressure is applied.
Gotta head for the hills.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Chains of Corruption missed, so that's going to be a very hefty cooldown coming out, but it's a 2v1 in the bottom lane.
Nice way to escape there for Kang. He's going to retreat pretty effectively. Always kind of deceptive what it takes to gank a Kled, but it's going to take a little bit more than that. So the pressure on the bottom lane continues to mount while China rotate up to the top lane, take their final outer turret, 6-4 right now. And Kang, though, having a little bit of struggle time. Kled now has to battle without his trusty mount. Skarl heads for the hill, and Kang is going to do so as well.
Yeah, but you always got to be careful when you're fighting a Kled, as pretty much any melee champion without too much range ability to harass, because if you fight him for too long, if you wait for him to hit you for too long, all of a sudden Skull comes back, you're like, hold on a minute, where'd you get a quarter of your HP bar from? And then they just win the duel 1v1 because you miscalculated. Yeah, so very smart of Cupcake to not just go whole ham, although Shen is one of the rare champions that can do so, because if you use your Spirit's Refuge, your auto null field, then what happens is whenever Kled orders you, he doesn't actually generate the bar because he doesn't actually make contact with you because of the auto dodge. But it's smart enough to know that there might have been some other Chinese members around.
Yeah, they're probably out there. Oh, they're out there all right. We'll see what the next fight really is over. It's been really only over Baron or maybe some picks in the mid lane. For right now, I mean, we talked about how strong Brave has been all game long. Mole has been able to get a positive score line, but when it comes to the team fights, those clutch moments, his ults really haven't been getting the job done, whereas on the other side, change to him. I really want to see the damage dealt to Champions Craft after this game because it's going to be huge hugely in his favor. The soldiers are just so impactful when teams group up in these 5v5s, and it looks like that's what we might be setting up for in the top lane.
Yeah, that's just definitely how they want to be playing this situation. You know, Israel's best case scenario is getting that 5v5, but it's just going to be a very hard task for them, because whenever they want to do so, whenever they want to set this up, Kang is always the annoying thorn in their side, because he'll always be pushing out this bottom lane, regardless of whether he has Baron buff or not. He's got charge, he's got teleport, he's more than ready to make these cross-map plays, and he's always going to be on the offensive, pressing against Cupcake.
Oh, Caitlyn getting rooted out there, blown up before the fight even starts. X-Rangel is not going to make it out of there alive, and Israel, off of their 80 carry, walking forward into a Chains of Corruption, will lose their middle inhibitor. And maybe not the game because the creeps aren't there to support it, but I mean, China's looking for more. Cupcake not going to be the target they want to initiate on, but man, just so impactful. This Caitlyn positioning has been what has caught Israel out time and time again.
And that just felt like deja vu. It's just the fact that the Caitlyn stood a little bit too far ahead. And you know for certain that Hope is never going to be shy of using his ultimate whenever he sees the opportunity, though. He did it, and now here's the frantic defense.
They will try, but it's not going to be enough. Gochujin will respawn just in the nick of time, but it's not enough. The Nexus falls, and China takes a 20-12 victory over Israel in game number 1 of the 3rd and 4th place match.
Just capitalizing off of every possible scenario that they could have. It was such a close game, Rapid, but you could just see in those intense moments when Caitlyn stood a little bit too far ahead, when Azir stood a little bit too far ahead, either Chains of Corruption or the Glacial Prison came out, and the other was soon to follow. And combined between those two lockdowns, there was no way that whoever got caught was going to make it out of that alive.
Great job in the overall game there by Israel, but in the end, they kind of live and die by their duo lane. And really, Gochujin getting caught out a couple of very key moments. And while he's getting caught out and killed, on the other side, you have Varus doing things like stealing Baron with a piercing arrow and just really always able to win not only the 1v or the 1v1, but having the Chains of Corruption. You'll miss a few times, but it's about the ones that hit. And those were very key at ending the game in China's favor.
Oh, yeah, of course. But going back to the Baron steal, you know, this is a 1 in 100 scenario. I don't think that we're ever going to see that one again. Maybe this is a foreshadowing of a caster curse, but, you know, it's a very difficult thing to imagine happening again. And the fact that it happened really gave the game to China. It's not to say that China was necessarily down, but it's to say that with a Baron wave, a Caitlyn, and an Azir, they have ridiculous siege potential. And that's always the scenario that Israel wanted to find themselves in. That Baron would have given them the chance, but it was just taken away from under them.
It really was, and that's going to do it for game number 1 of our best of 3 series. I believe we are going to take a brief break in between games to allow teams the opportunity to consult their coaches and really just reset their thoughts coming into game number 2. So what do you think was the key moment in that match? Was it the Baron steal, or what really caught your eye?
It definitely had to be the Baron steal, but more important than that, it was also just a display of lack of hesitation coming out from the Chinese squad. The fact that as soon as they see a member in a wrong position, they use the Chains of Corruption, they use the Glacial Prison, and they are not afraid to pull the trigger whenever they see fit.
Well, they did see fit quite a bit in that game. Katarina, another in a long line of very unique champions. We'll see which ones come out in game number 2. We take a quick break beforehand. We'll be right back with that second match.